I'm here because I am a roaring lion crying out righteousness. J.D. Vance and Donald John Tribulation Trump are persecuting women. And I don't know that we've had this kind of a high-tech, high-level persecution of women since the days of them burning women at the stake as witches in Salem, Massachusetts during the Great Awakening and the great revivals of America during the Jonathan Edwards period, when women were considered witches, and there were politicians like J.D. Vance and Donald John Trump who were saying, because of certain habits that women have, and mainly because many of these women in Salem, Massachusetts, and across Massachusetts, and across New England for that matter, and the burned over district with Charles Finney, also a great revivalist, that women that did not have children were considered witches. Now, I want to speak to the MAGA people. I know y'all are listening. I want to speak to you that what J.D. Vance, what Donald John Trump and J.D. Vance are doing on two levels is, if you will, patently satanic, accusing women who don't have children as being witches. Now, he's not calling them witches, he called them cat women. Now, there are a lot of women in the Bible. Manoah's wife, who was the mother of Samson, Elizabeth, the mother of John the Baptizer, Sarah, the mother of Isaac, Hannah, the mother of Samuel. All these women bear no children, including Rachel, the mother of Joseph, bear no children for quite some time. What Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are doing to advance their campaign and the campaign of the devil is going back to that period and referring to these women as cat women, actually calling them witnesses, and but for a moment would have women who don't have children burned at the stake, the way many women were burned in Massachusetts until this evil political spirit, and it was all a political movement. Salem, Massachusetts, women being burned at the stake was all a political movement of the politicians of that day. Now we find that spirit alive again in the MAGA, Donald John Tribulation Trump, and also in J.D. Vance. We find that spirit. And so it's important that we get a biblical perspective, that we get the word of truth. We can't just keep listening to these people on television who many of them are perverts. Many of the women you see are lesbian, burning in their panties for another woman's panties or vagina, and men who are burning in their scrotum for another man's scrotum. God will not let them be the conveyors of the truth, though they have the anchor position on ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. Yeah, Fox News is the biggest place of homosexuality. The biggest freaks are on Fox News. But that being said, including Tucker Carlson being a freak. So you're not going to get the truth. You'll get a concoction of, if you will, racism based on economics and a bunch of other things and political ideology. But this is straight from the devil's playbook, what J.D. Vance and Donald Trump are doing by calling women cat women and don't have children. This is straight from the devil's playbook. He's used this ploy before. And let me say something to you. While I in no wise want to see Camelback ain't Black Harris become president, God knows I don't want to see that. My life might be over because the LGBTQ people are becoming at me unbridled. But I can say this to you, should Donald Trump and J.D. Vance become president, you may see the burning of at the stake of women again. You may actually see women called witches or midwives, and they'll be brought before the, if you will, corrupt justice of the American presidential policies of Donald John Trump and J.D. and be burned at the stake. You women need to look, y'all need to look carefully and long at these men, Vance and Trump, and at your husbands who are supporting this. This is, go back to the, and read The long-standing period when women were called witches and were burned at the stake. It was worse than slavery. It was. It was worse than castration of black men in the South by slave owners. We're in a serious time of the tribulation. God's called me to speak. Now, one final thing. This same two characters are now carrying a lie or another concocted evil that Haitians are eating dogs and cats in a town called Springfield, Ohio. That Haitians who have jobs, who are earning more than the minimum wage, but are resulting to eating dogs and cats. Now, no one is of the Vance or Trump, if you will, concoction of cesspool of evil are saying, well, if they're eating, why are they eating dogs? Are they eating dogs because they're hungry? Are they eating cats because there's nothing, they don't have food to put on the table? Why they're not giving you the reason why they're eating. Because they know that the reason, once they start trying to give you the motive, why would people be eating people's dogs, catching them at night and eating dogs and cats, and then going to work the next morning? This is an attempt not only to use the fact that black people are cannibalistic, barbaric, if you're inhuman, subhuman. It is an attempt to paint the whole, if you will, black people. Now they have a lot of problems. God knows, ain't nobody can identify what I talk about black, but this is an attempt to identify all black people as subhuman. And if you bring them into your lily white neighborhood, and I say that, I don't mean to be racist or anything, but if you bring them to your white neighborhood, like Springfield, Ohio, if I said Illinois area, I'm sorry, here's what they will do. Black people aren't human. You can't bring them into the higher society. You can't bring them to your schools. You can't bring them to your neighborhoods. They will eat your cats and dogs. Keep black people separate. I'll tell you one thing, they didn't feel that way when they were taking them out of Africa over there for years on them slave ships, and they didn't accuse them of eating cats and dogs then, and that they were subhuman and you can't bring them. But this is what Donald Trump is doing, and he's just doing the devil's due. He's just doing the devil's due. I'm not for him, by the way, and I'm not for Kamala Harris. I'm not even for the lesser of two evils. I'll say this, let me be clear about something. While I'm pointing out this truth that you ain't going to get from the media because they're all perverts. You're not going to get this from CNN. You're not going to get this from MSC because they're all perverts, and God is not going to let truth flow through somebody that is as vile and backward. Anybody that has sex, any man that has sex with another man, he denies reality. Any woman who's burning in her panties for another woman's panties, if that's what you want to do to have sex, if that turns you on, go ahead and have your chocolate and your vanilla and banana milkshake. But the problem is this, is that you are not a vessel of truth. You are not a candidate of truth that belongs only in the scepter of God. If you are handling, as a woman, are handling another woman's panties, and if you as a man are handling another man's underwear and scrotum, God's not going to make you a messenger of his word or his truth for his people for the liberation of the people. That's just clear. Anybody got half a brain. I'm not listening to you. I'm not listening to some woman who's burning in her panties for another. I'm not listening to you. You're insane. I'm not listening to J.D. Vance, who's trying to say that women are witches, or Donald Trump is trying to say that women are witches. I'm not listening to any of it. We're in the tribulation, I keep telling you, and you need to understand it. But that's where we are. And this is a voice of truth coming up out of ATLAH, formerly known as Harlem. This is the voice of truth. I'm James David Manning. I'm the Lord's servant. And you listen to the voice of truth, and maybe the only voice of truth that is to be heard. So be aware of the witches. Be aware of what's really behind calling women cat women by J.D. Vance and Donald Trump. They're going to be pulling out the stakes and burning women at the stakes very shortly if that man becomes president and J.D. Vance vice president. If he becomes president, J.D. Vance will be president in 9 months because they're going to get rid of Trump. They say it's too old and he's too well known. Let's get a fresher face and some new ideologies. I'm James David Manning, everybody. Stay tuned to the voice of truth coming up out of ATLAH, New York. And you don't have to believe that. You just go ahead and be burned at the stake. Allow your heart to be clogged with the filth. The black people are barbarians, cannibals, inhuman, subhuman, eating dogs and cats at night when they can go to Olive Garden or Golden Corral because they got the money. Anybody that believes that the black people are eating dogs and cats when they got a pocket full of money and they can go to Olive Garden, Golden Corral, or Cracker Barrel. It's got to be a damn fool. I'm James David Manning, everybody. I'm the Lord's servant.